Welcome back to In the Chute. He's Calen. I'm Brandon. He has the questions, and I got all the answers. What do you got, Calen?
He'd like to think he has all the answers. Um,
Yeah, I
we've
wish I
got
did.
I met somebody on TikTok, coordinated his potential visiting of the ranch. He's supposed to be coming around in a couple days.
Mhm.
By the time this is published, he will be long gone. But he's visiting from California. He's coming into Montana. He's going all throughout the state, getting updates and stuff like that. So he'll be there in a couple days. But he is looking to get into the agriculture world. We sat down with him via Zoom, Dad and I, one day, and we had a good hour to an hour and a half conversation with him. And he is looking to start his own ranch, and he's got his own vision and his goal that he wants to do with that ranch. But what I wanted to ask you was, if you were to start over today at I'm 28, he's 27, he's a year behind me. He was former military. He just got out. He's kind of transitioned. He's got himself a good job, but he's looking to kind of move into that next part of his life, going towards this ultimate goal, and he wants to start over with a ranch. So my question is with you: if you were 25 to 29, just before you hit those dreaded 30s, the dirty 30s, what would you do to start a ranch today in 2022?
Oh, it's tough. It depends on what you want to do with it. If you're looking like we're doing on the cattle end of it, I'd say wait. Wait till the time is right. You know, it's not a good time to be in the business right now. It cycles, and even when it's at its best, it's still relatively tough. And I think what he is really looking to do is get into agriculture with horses, but if you know, do some things to give back to his community and mainly veterans,
Mm-hmm.
and work with them with horses, kind of transitioning back into the real world. And some of those that get a little PTSD as a, I know that's not the term you use, but it's
No, I say
what,
PTS. It's not a disorder, it's just a stress.
yeah, it's stress. Yeah, that's right. It's not a disorder. It was not something you're born with. Um, So doing it that way is more of a niche, but I think you need to study under somebody. Need to really learn what it takes, what it's needed, and then really have some really super good oversight in it. And I think being a veteran like him, yourself, um, guys that can understand what other guys are going through. That is the most important thing. I don't think you have to be a counselor. You just have to be a set of ears and
Mm-hmm.
an honest voice. And sometimes guys can be pretty tough on each other, and that's fine as long as it gets the message through. And being able to do that in his venue or the way he wants to do that with horses is probably your biggest tool. The horses are nothing more than a tool for what you want to do for that message, and being able to understand your people and understand your horses ahead of time before you ever buy your first little plot of land.
Right.
I think that's the most important thing to do is think it out, have that plan completely uh, thought out, understood, and all the types of contingencies of what could go right, what can go wrong, so that you can plan for it and kind of have a head start and be looking for those things that when they go wrong, and looking for the things that go right when it's headed in the right direction too. So I think just don't jump into it. You got to get a mentor and work in that business a little bit, because you may work into it and you find something that's could be done better, or
Mm-hmm.
you know what, or man, they're doing something I would have never thought of. That's very, very important, and I think that'd be the first thing I would do is not jump in, but wade in,
Right.
and wade in with purpose and with open ears and eyes, and the ability to learn and listen.
And you bring up 2 points that I think are important. I'll start with the first one. You got to have land to start out. If you don't have land in agriculture, it's kind of hard to do. The question is, with today's, especially looking at Montana, today's land prices, how do you go about doing something like that, acquiring land without becoming so indebted that you're spending the rest of your life trying to dig your way out of that hole?
And that's a good question. I don't know how, honestly, without having
Yeah.
a trust fund or a backer that is willing to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
That's uh, family money. You
Yeah.
know,
It's a
other than
risk,
that,
is what you're
it's a
saying.
huge risk, and
Yeah.
the odds are against you. You know, it's like playing against the house in Vegas. It's
Yeah.
damn tough, and that's something that it's one thing when you fail because uh, you don't do things right, and you can learn from them. But it's a different thing to fail in a game that where the cards are already stacked up to where they don't play in your favor.
Right.
That's tough, and you know, it's almost like it's a shell game at times where, well, we got another one coming in. Let's see how much we can get out of his life savings or somebody else's life savings for down payment money, and we'll keep it when they move on.
Right. Well, it's interesting too because it's an indicator of overall society right now because look at how
Mhm.
many people my age, just coming out of college or just starting out in their respective industry careers, and they're living with their parents or their grandparents right now
Right.
because they can't afford to buy a house or land because it's just so expensive. And it's been like
Well,
that for the last 5 years.
and it's not just that. There's some grandparents that have a house that can't afford to stay in it because of
Yeah.
tax increases because of land prices going up too. I mean, that's or uh, everything in the area, food,
Yeah.
clothing, gasoline, heating fuel, all going up, and they can't afford to stay in their own house. So,
Hmm.
that might drive family clans back together if they don't kill each other in the meantime.
Yeah. Now my second point that I wanted to bring up was you said, you know, particularly with our friend that'll be visiting, you were saying, he's probably going to be looking more toward the horse part of ranching or more likely agritourism type thing that we're looking to do as well. But if someone were to get into more of the cattle business, more or less what we're into mostly right now, what would you say would be probably the best way to do that? I've heard a lot of people say, "Hey, buy a bunch of ballers, and raise them up, and then sell them. So you're not putting a whole lot into them at the beginning. You just buy them, try and get them on the low end, and then you feed them up real quick, and you send them back out. Maybe make a couple hundred off of each one. Is that the way to go? Is there a different way to go? Maybe buy your own heifers and try and breed them somehow, and then do it like what would you say would be probably your strategy if you were to start a ranch in 2022?
Well, I think what I would if you're going to really try to start a ranch, it depends on your resources. I mean, if you got
Yeah,
plenty of grass, can you feed them all winter long? Are you prepared to calve them? If you did that, probably the cheapest way to get into it is maybe buy some older cows that are bred up, and you know
like some broken mouth cows is what people
like
would say.
yeah, or
Yeah,
yeah, even some solid mouth where you got maybe 3 years out of them. Try to get a couple of crops of calves out of them and sell them, and then breed them back. Get yourself a bull and start slow, um, because the the more you go into it, the further and more money the wheel starts to turn uh, that is required for you to be able to maintain them and hold on to them. Well, that means more land, more feed. It can snowball pretty quickly. So if you start slow, you know, if you got the land, if you got enough grass to reach out there and buy 15, 20 head of bred older cows, that's not probably a bad way to start. I think um, when you're trying to play a market, buying ballers or some even some bum calves, that are really young, and trying to buy them young, put some weight on them, put feed into them, medicate them, or vaccinate them, get them up to an age where you can sell them as a feeder calf. That can be really tough because you might lose your ass on it, from in 5 months, 6 months.
right.
So that's tough. You're basically playing a market. You're trying to buy low, sell high, like everything else, but you
So
just
in that
don't buy
regard,
and then let it sit because you got to put money into them.
wouldn't it, I guess knowing that, would it be better to maybe buy some some fed up feeder calves and then finish them out yourself and then potentially try and do, two, three, maybe four direct sales and kind of market yourself and do it like a really low budget direct sale version that way, and you finish them out how you want, and then you just kind of work the route that way without actually dealing with all the breeding and all that.
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, you could do that on a very small scale. That's another way to approach it, and not a bad idea. If you can buy those calves cheap and then go ahead and feed them up and keep them for 18 months, 18 to 24 months, and have yourself, you know, at about at about 16 months old, start saying, "Hey, I'm going to have some calves ready. You can have one or something that's ready to eat." And feed them out and then do that on a custom basis, uh, you might be able to come out like that if you've got again you got the feed into it, you got the place to do it at, and then you got the right people that want them. Some want just totally grass, fat cattle. If you do that, you better have the ground for it because you got to turn those animals
Right.
completely loose. You can't, you know, feed them in a corral and let them go out and graze at the same time. Some people will do it just like a feedlot where you're just bringing them in, you're feeding them up and until they're of age to or weight enough to go ahead and sell direct. So that's not a bad way to do that. You could do that with a couple of head at the same time you start with some older cows. You can do all three. You can buy some of these younger calves and maybe diversify a little bit right off the bat, and then see which one is going to do your the best for you. And you might have a loss on two of them and a gain on one, and you know, you're on the hamster wheel and then you just keep going. But you'll learn a lot doing that. You're going to learn a ton right off the bat. And there's no better learner than doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it comes back to what you said earlier, which is, I mean, you gotta have the land in the first place.
Yeah. You
So
got
you
to have
gotta
some
figure that
capital.
out.
Yeah.
Right. But with that, we'll take that conversation about how to start a ranch in 2022 and put it out to the pasture that you may or may not have.